it starts with a date at Indiana, which brings back some memories of 2017, where the Buckeyes, for one of the few times, opened in Big Ten play, and they do it again at Indiana. Of course, a game that J.K. Dobbins exploded in the second half to lead the Buckeyes to victory.
Yeah, let me point out that in their game notes that we receive each week, Ohio State has been publishing a 2023 schedule. And what we were told was that there could be changes to some sites or maybe even some opponents. But what we found out when they sent this to us earlier today and said, hang on to this, get your stories ready, etc. They work with us a little bit on these releases. This is identical to what they've been having in their game notes. The entire schedule is basically no changes from what's been out there publicly on the Ohio State website. So what Gene Smith, the athletic director, and Kevin Warren, the commissioner of the Big Ten, have said about Big Ten scheduling is that they want to go away from scheduling in 4 and 5 and 6 year blocks, and instead release the following year's schedule in October. So that's what we're getting in the habit of right now. They're releasing this schedule, and there may be, of the other 13 teams that are going to play in the Big Ten next year, there may be changes on some of those schedules, but I'm not aware of it. All I know is Ohio State is exactly the way that they put it out originally. So, but they want in the future to be able to 14 months out, if say UCLA, let's just as an example, is swinging up, they want to be able to match them with all the other top schools so that you have, top matchup games. They want to spread out all those top matchups throughout the whole season. I don't know. I know Kevin said he doesn't feel like there'll be divisions going forward. Gene Smith is anti-divisions. I think it's probably 50-50 whether there will be divisions or not. Those schools in the West probably would never be represented if there weren't divisions, because the top two are probably going to come from Ohio State, Penn State, or Michigan, 5 out of 6 years. 2 of those 3 teams are probably going to be in the championship game most years. So, with 16 teams, you spread the wealth a little bit. And honestly, the Indiana what would it be? The Indiana-Illinois state line would be a perfect divisor. You would put Purdue over in the East and put USC and UCLA in the West, and you would have eight schools in each of the 2 divisions if you did it strictly by geography. But again, that limits how many times USC is going to play Michigan and Ohio State, which, you didn't add them to not have USC and Ohio State and Michigan play each other. So a lot of moving parts on all this. But one last thing about that opening game, September the 2nd, I asked Jerry Imig, the sports information director, today. I said, is there a chance, have they moved any of the games for the season next year already to Thursday or Friday nights? Because they opened out there, I think it was on a Thursday night. They opened on a Thursday night last year up at Minnesota. And he said, no, Minnesota will have that next year, I guess, because it coincides with their state fair in Minneapolis that happens that Labor Day weekend, I guess. And so they are getting I don't know if it's going to be a regular tradition that Minnesota will open the season on Thursday night that year or most years, but it will not happen for Ohio State at Indiana. It doesn't sound like next year. And Ohio State's probably not too excited about moving any games to Friday based off the disaster with Northwestern a few years ago where, oh, yeah, we'll put it on Fox Sports 1, and then the Yankees playoff game got rained out and the playoffs were on Fox Sports 1, and Ohio State moved a game to Friday night to play on Big Ten Network in a smaller percentage of homes. But, and they don't think they'll ever play a Friday night home game, which, I guess we'll have to wait and see if that ever comes down the pike. I think at some point they're going to have to acquiesce and play some games. But I'll let you continue with the rollout. Go ahead. Now that I've got all that off my chest.
Well, Steve, we're big on analyzing schedules here at the Voice of College Football. So we do this on a regular basis in terms of dissecting all this. So the 2 things that jump out to me, the 2 things that I'm looking for, I should say, would be, of course, where's the big non-conference games? So very different than this season's rollout. Notre Dame in game one. The Buckeyes are going to have 3 games under their belt, including a Big Ten opener before they meet Notre Dame. And then, of course, it's always, who do you play in the West? What's that draw out of the West? And we see it's Purdue, we see it's Wisconsin, and we see Minnesota as an interesting lead into the Michigan game. That has typically been in, a backloaded Eastern Division schedule for the Buckeyes. And when they do play a Western Division, because I think hearkening back to years gone by, Illinois has popped up in that slot before the Michigan game a number of times. But those are the things that jump out to me.
Yeah, Youngstown State in week 2, Jim Tressel is retiring as the president is Youngstown State. And I think it was, maybe he was maybe instrumental in getting this on the Ohio State schedule. And I think it's a perfect opportunity. Paul Brown and Woody Hayes have signs inside the facade there at Ohio Stadium. Perfect time to unveil Jim Tressel's sign for winning the 2002 national championship, and also potentially have him dot the I in Script, Ohio would be a perfect time to do that, to celebrate everything he's done for both schools. Western Kentucky, I don't know much about them. I know they've given Indiana some tough games here the last couple of years, and probably the first time Ohio State's ever played Western Kentucky. Obviously, at Notre Dame, just the third time all-time Ohio State will go to Notre Dame. None of us in our lifetimes have seen Ohio State lose to Notre Dame. Whatever the total is now, like 6-2 or something like that, I think it is, in the all-time series, or 4-2. I don't know. My math is, it would be 6-2 because it was a home and home series, 2 bowl game. No, it's 5-2.
Yeah.
And then the game this year. So 5-2 Ohio State all-time. Haven't lost to them since up there in 1936. And Marcus Freeman's second year. And I think they're hoping to gain some momentum here in the second half of this season that will lead them into some big things maybe next year. Got to get some position short up there. At Purdue, I'm trying to think when Ohio State last played Purdue.
Well, they lost the 2018 game.
Yeah, it might have been it.
Lasted.
They played Nebraska in so many of these crossovers in recent years.
I'm sorry, Steve. Of course, they went to Purdue. That's the last time they went to Purdue. Of course, they blasted them last year at the
Yeah, put 59-31, something like that. Yep. So that's interesting. At Wisconsin, always a great trip to go to Wisconsin because they take it so seriously there at Camp Randall Stadium, and just a great trip to go up there and see a game. In Minnesota, as you said there at the end, interesting. The Gophers coming in the week before the Michigan game, and Michigan could have the edge next year. Obviously, they'll have the quarterback there, and with McCarthy, I guess he would be in his second year as the starter, whereas Ohio State would have a first-year starter if we're all of the opinion that C.J. Stroud's gone. So, yeah, it was kind of we were all excited, wondering what's going to change. Will there be a Thursday night game or whatever? And then we got it today in our email and was like, not much difference. But last time that we'll be in this configuration, East and West, and we'll see what the powers that be have in mind for the Big Ten going forward, beginning in 2024 with USC and UCLA coming online.
Absolutely, folks. So if you're nostalgic for the past and you like to hold on to such things, of course, take a look at the schedule, soak in the 23 season, because that's going to be the last iteration of this version of the Big Ten. As every couple decades, we get a new iteration of the Big Ten. Of course, the last big change was splitting up in divisions. Well, I guess that was done twice in the span of 4 to 5 years, of course, because they didn't like how they did it the first time with the legends and leaders and confused the nation. And then they redistributed everyone 4 years later, starting in 2014. And then before that, you would have to go back to the Penn State edition back in 1993.